Hello, good evening. Chris Packham here, speaking to you from the New Forest. And I'm very excited this time of year because we have one of the most charismatic, enigmatic, and frankly damn weird birds in the world that comes to visit. And I'm fortunate in that they nest on the heaths on the outside of my house. But because I've allowed the grass to grow long and I don't have an army of ponies or a legion of deer, I've rewilded my garden and it's full of insects. And I'm lucky enough to have a couple of large oak trees which heat up in the daytime. So in the evening, the nightjars come off of the otherwise barren heath, overgrazed heath, and they come to my garden to feed. And over the last week, I've been enjoying spectacular views of them flying overhead. At one point, I had four together at once. Yeah, four together at once. That was amazing. And then on the previous night, there were three, and one of them got chased by a woodcock, and I nearly burst. I was that excited. However, update. Today hasn't been as good weather-wise. The temperature's been hovering around 21, feels like 17, and it's been extraordinarily windy. The wind has dropped a little bit now, but it's overcast, and I think without that warmth, it might impinge upon my capacity to bring you Nightjar. So I'm very pleased that I'm able to introduce a longtime friend and colleague, Luke Massey. Luke is fortunate enough to live in Spain. He lives on the wild finca. And whilst we were setting up this call and having a chatter about what was going on more broadly than nightjars, I can tell you that we had them churring. So I think we can almost guarantee you an encounter with a nightjar. It may not be a visible one from the New Forest, but it could be an audible one from Spain, which is equally spectacular. So, Luke, good evening, and thanks ever so much for joining us. It's a pleasure to see you again. Our history goes way back to when we were sleeping in cars in Malta, trying to combat bird crime there, and working as hard as we could to try and put an end to that. Tell us a bit about Wild Finca and where you are to start with.
Good evening. Thanks for having me. Yeah, hopefully a nightjar. It's stopped now, but I, can you hear that? It's a bit distant.
Bit distant that one. I
It's
can't
stopped.
hear that. I heard
Awesome.
the one previously,
Anyway,
but yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Wild Thinker. So yeah, some of you might know from back in the self-isolating bird club days, but we are in Asturias in northern Spain, which is very different to the rest of Spain. It's known as Green Spain, and we've set up a now 13-hectare rewilding project. So we turned an old abandoned dairy farm into what we hope is an oasis for wildlife. We've got 114 different species of bird now recorded, over 30 species of mammal with 16 species of bat. Lots of different habitats. We put lots of ponds in. We've got kind of developing scrub, woodland, meadows, and then I guess you'd call it heathland if it was in the UK, but they don't really have that here. But the same kind of that gorsey, heathery bit, which I'm kind of suffering at the minute. I've actually got a piece of gorse poking me in the back. Um, but
But what
it's
give
perfect.
us your species highlights on the list there. So in terms of birds, what's going to titillate the UK
Yeah.
viewers in terms of birds
Um,
and mammals?
well, the newest addition, which is something that's been like teasing us for the last, so we've been here 6 years now. So the last 4 years, I'd say we've heard them in winter, is eagle owl. So they were calling a lot this past winter, and we thought, this is got to be. And then they go silent. And I actually went for coffee with a friend, and he said, oh, it's weird, they just disappeared. But in February, those that don't know, eagle owls are just brutes. They kill everything. And across Spain, they mainly predate rabbits. But here we don't have any rabbits. There are no rabbits in Asturias. So they go for more avian-based prey, and hedgehogs actually seems to be a favourite, and rodents. Anyway, long story short, we went up to look where we thought there was vultures nesting, and my friend spotted an adult eagle owl. I went back the following morning, and the crows were mobbing something, got it in the binoculars, and it was an adult eagle owl that then flew up to the hole that we'd spotted it in, and there were two chicks. So this was kind of beginning of May, mid-May time, and those two chicks have now fledged. But I managed to get up there to put some camera traps along the cliff. It's kind of this big expanse of cliff that goes above Wild Finca. And yeah, as you can see, they really just kill everything. I mean, a lot of the prey was crows, carrying crows, but we got buzzard. This is a juvenile buzzard that is being fed to one of the chicks here. Common kestrel, magpie. Oh, nightjar. He's landed behind me, I think. Yeah, he's landed behind me in the tree.
Oh, I can hear that.
Wing,
stuttered.
did you get the wing clapping as well?
I didn't. I heard the churring, and then he sort of stuttered to a standstill, like it was a moped that stalled.
Yeah, I think, yeah. I mean, that's a bit
But
early. Yeah.
those eagle owls are spectacular. That's great. So they're pretty close to you, are they?
Yeah, so I mean, we could watch the nest from our living room with the scope.
Wow.
So yeah, I mean, spectacular for us, but yeah, we lost our barn owls on site. So we found one predated in February, and then when we got up to the nest site, we found three individuals underneath the nest site, or at least
Mm.
their wings.
Oh,
Um,
hold on. There it is. Oh no, stopped again.
he's going, but he's a bit further. If he comes into this tree behind me like that, then he's really
Yeah. But hey, listen, when we get species coming back like that, it's a bit like us with goshawks here, isn't it? They've been absent for such a long time that, that when they re-embed themselves in the ecology, there are bound to be, localized impacts. We've lost the kestrels and indeed some of the sparrowhawks that nest where I am in the New Forest. We've probably got about 50 pairs of goshawk now in the forest and in the surrounding area. In the woods where I used to live, there was one nest and now there are three. Um, so I think that there's bound to be a period of readjustment. That's the way of it. And in a way, I always say goshawks are avian terminators, and I guess eagle owls are nocturnal avian terminators, aren't they?
so we have both goshawk and eagle owl, obviously. And yeah, I mean, we see what's nice. One of the reasons I say we moved, well, there's many reasons we moved here, but I think the most honest one for me was I'm quite impatient. So I've come to a place where we have wolves on the doorstep, we have bears not far away, and then we've got almost a full suite in terms of trophic cascade. And yeah, so we have no little owls, hardly any kestrels now, very few carrying crows, and I think it is, yeah, magpies. I mean, they set up again this year by the house and got nailed within a week or two. I don't know if that was by eagle owl at night or by goss.
Every time I draw attention to it, it stops. But in between, I can hear it churring over your shoulder. Just go on to the nightjars, mate. How many pairs of nightjars have you got, and how close are they to you? Then are they in that tree behind you?
Yeah, so the tree behind me is one of this male's favourite spot, but we've kind of got, let's say there's one territory here, there's another one to my right, and then there's one to my left. I think we've definitely got three calling males. But the hard thing here is, that their calls travel. So there's a bit of a breeze tonight, but their calls travel so far, and because we've got this like undulating landscape, it kind of bounces all around. But that's what's quite good because like the last week or so, before I sent you a message, like I've been kind of trying to work out where they are, and they do have their timings. So like the furthest one, he kicks off at like 10 past 10, then the other one kicks off at like 13 past 10, and then this one is the kind of quarter past, 20 past 10. Can you hear him? I mean, hopefully he'll
Yeah.
come back up here. I think I'll have to. I mean, when he stops, I can sit down, and if I'm quiet, he might just come up into this tree again. Because I don't know if I startled him earlier when I suddenly like ducked down.
Mm,
But
mm,
I mean, we have a really good with the bat population. We have a very good moth population, obviously, as well, and insects, dung beetles, lots of mosquitoes. I keep hearing them buzzing in my ear. So
mm,
there's plentiful food supply for them. And then since we took on wild finca, so we have 13 hectares that's like wild finca, and then we have like 22 hectares of, they call it communal land around it, which that's kind of the really nightjar, like prime habitat. And historically it would have been burnt quite regularly. And since we took it on, it hasn't been burnt, touch wood. So with that, it's developing into this nice pillowy, perfect for nightjars.
mm.
It's grazed by roe deer, wild boar. Every so often we put our ponies and cows on it very slightly, but like literally maybe 3, 4 days a year. But even like, where I'm stood, this hasn't been grazed and it's still like a nice open patch and then there's thick gorse around it. So it's perfect for nightjars to breed in. And without that burning as well, they're kind of safe. So I guess we're starting to see a boom in that side of things.
And how are you making the wild thinker work in terms of its aims and ambitions?
So first and foremost, well, I think it's our home. And then from then on, we said, our number one aim is biodiversity and nature. That's our forefront. So we're not doing any commercial farming. We're very small scale in size anyway. So we literally have the ponies and cattle for basically proxy species in terms of grazing, but they're never going to go into a, you know, commercial. So, yeah, I know some projects are growing beef. We're not doing that. Our main thing is now we're going for education. So that's physical education in terms of, well, not PE, but some people may see it that way. But like getting kids through the door or through the gate onto Wild Finca, local kids, and inspiring them about nature. A lot of these kids, even though we live in a very rural area, have never touched a slow worm, seen a grasshopper, heard a nightjar, those kind of things. So we're trying to get more and more school kids through because locally we're seeing a big shift, I guess, in kind of almost anti-nature thoughts, and we want to make a change that way and get more people inspired. And they have this gem here. Why not kind of learn about it? And I have two kids of my own, and I see how much joy they get from being in the natural world. So firstly, that's kind of getting the kids out into it. I am doing guided trips as well for people that come and visit and local people. That's just like a 3-hour tour around Wildfinker. And then we're doing a lot of online offerings as well. So in the summer holidays, we're going to be offering something for getting kids out into nature. So it will be like an online 21-day offering where there'll be an activity every single day that we've come up with that you can do anywhere. You don't need a Wildfinker. You can do it in your garden. You can do it in the park. And then we also do something called Inside Wildfinker, which is the thing we're kind of pushing for at the minute, which is just a small subscription, and it gets people out there and into Wildfinker. They get to enjoy Wildfinker in terms of what we can offer. You can learn about rewilding. We do soundscapes, podcasts, and then a monthly kind of live meeting. So that's just like a magazine subscription almost. But we also offer a free monthly newsletter as well. So
And how do people find that? Sounds great.
So I think there should be a link somewhere here in this chat. I can't see it at the minute. But also just on our website, wildfinker.com, and on our socials, you can click through and you'll sign up to a newsletter, and you can kind of almost choose what you're into. If you want to get kids into nature, you can choose that. If you're more into learning about rewilding, you can choose that. And we have all the different kind of pathways. And I mean, we're learning from doing it as well. We're kind of immersed in this. I'm doing this pretty much 365 days a year for 6 years now. My filming days are pretty much far behind me, and I spend most of my time removing fencing, watching cows, and looking for wildlife.
Oh, hold on. You've been taking some quite good photos, I've noticed on Instagram at least.
Yeah, every now and again I still, but I don't really have the time anymore. I think I'm more out there with my binoculars and looking. I do have a camera, but it's gathering dust somewhere.
Color in dust. Hey, a lot of people are going to be thinking, all this is sounding truly spectacular. You're talking about bears, you're talking about wolves and having 3 pairs of nightjar and so forth. And I'm very fortunate to live, in a national park, albeit, like many of our national parks, not the best managed for wildlife, at least. Great resources for people. We wouldn't argue that. And that's what it should be. But I think in terms of biodiversity, they're not really meeting the targets that they should. But um, nevertheless, very, very fortunate indeed to be here. But when you start talking about wolves and bears and eagle owls, I start slavering. So, what's the reality of being in Spain like that? Because, there must be some difficulties as well. Firstly, when I met you, you couldn't speak Spanish.
No, no, I still can't. No, I can speak enough Spanish now. I'm very good on agricultural chat and wildlife chat in Spanish. Um, with my barber, in fact, I have a lot of chats on my annual haircut with him, and I'm learning all the Asturian names for certain animals. But no, I mean, the reality is it's not that dissimilar to the UK. I always say that Asturias is like 30 years behind in terms of, I guess, the development. Where redback shrikes, for example, are falling off quite drastically. Obviously, with the EU just removing protections for the wolf, the Spanish straight away. So already, I think Asturias, I don't know if they've started, but they said they're going to kill, I want to say, 41 wolves in Asturias. Cantabria's already started killing wolves, including 2 that I was filming this time last year, or a bit later last year. So no, I mean it's not all doom and gloom, but there is definitely, the human wildlife conflict can be, sometimes can seem very far away, but actually living here, I see it on a daily basis in terms of the wolf situation. It's very,
I c
I think he's not coming up here because I'm talking, because he did that one land in behind me.
I can hear that though, loud and clear.
Proper churring. Hopefully the cowbells aren't drowning it out. I don't know. Have you got any your end yet? Too early.
Yeah.
There's two now. There's one to the left as well. When he stops down there, he might come up here to this tree. So we'll see. He's landed. Ready? too. It's just landed again. Also a very late night hobby calling. I don't know if you can hear that.
Hobby.
It's interesting because I was doing some research earlier about like they must use so much energy when they chirr, and it's basically there's no real official like studies done on it, but they think probably like an hour's churring is 2 calories or 3 calories. So they basically have to go and eat a moth to like re-energize. Actually, flying takes a lot more energy. But have you ever seen them when they're flying? When you see them at yours, they're just like avian basking sharks, are they? Like, do they really fly around with their mouth open?
Um, uh, no, I mean, I see them. Oh, hold on, still muted. Uh, okay, Fabes, can you unmute me? I keep trying, but I'm not succeeding.
I can hear you. I think.
Oh, can you? Sorry,
Yeah.
it's saying I'm muted. No, I'm when I'm standing here like this, looking up, I can very often see insects which are large enough to be, seen by me from the ground, and they deliberately hawk those. There's no question. They twist and turn on the sixpence when they're really buzzing around the trees. They will land on the trees occasionally and do like about 10 seconds of chirring, but this is obviously very obviously a feeding area. We hear them chirring over there, and then they come, yeah, normally at about 9:45 when it's warm and clear and not windy. And they literally fly around all of the large oak and beech trees all the way here and further down the river, skirting the tops of the trees. Occasionally come down lower, maybe mid height on those trees, so probably about 10 meters, but most of the time they're probably about, I don't know, at least 20 meters up. Um, and very often, I see them what must be beetles or early, flying moths that they're taking. A certain amount of trawling, but they seem to be actively hawking as well.
Can you hear this one? Wing clapping. Wing clapping overhead. There's three now, quite close together. But yeah, it's interesting what you said because obviously here I'm in the middle of like Chur City, let's say, but
Yeah,
then like Wild Finkers Meadows, so to speak, are 60 meters down the hill, and that's like you say, if I sit in the middle of those fields and look, that's where you see them hunting, so to speak,
yeah.
and you might get
Mm.
like the kind of the boop kind of call.
That's it. Yeah,
But
they give that call here, and people frequently mistake it for sort of early night tawny owl because it sounds almost a bit like a kiwik, but it's a definitely very obviously a different call. But that alerts me to them if I haven't seen them previously. But apart from that one call, then they're invariably silent here.
it's
But
interesting in terms of like habitat because probably I think our habitats are quite similar. Obviously here it's a lot more mountain. I mean we're not actually that high. We're only at 200 meters, but obviously higher than the New Forest. And
mm,
but a lot of people ask us about like our rewilding. Oh, he's coming back in. He's landed, so we'll see if he
okay,
goes again.
let's have a see if we can have one last chair.
Almost like a round of applause.
Oh my goodness, that was top action, wasn't it? Chirring and wind clapping, so loud, so good. How close are you to those birds?
I did it for about 10 meters maximum. So like,
Wow, wow,
it's literally this tree. I mean, I don't know how it's
yeah,
this dark now, but it's this tree
yeah.
behind me. But yeah, in terms of rewilding, I don't
You're
know.
in the VIP area. You're at the, you've got the, grade
Front row
one
seat.
red
It's like,
pass in the VIP Nightjar area, basically.
does seem that way. Um,
Oh, that's good. So
but
good.
oh, they're amazing birds, and to have them here, it's definitely for me. It's probably giving quite a lot of information, but when we first moved here, we rented on the hillside opposite, and where I grew up, there was never any nightjars. I think I heard them a couple of times in the Forest of Dean, I think that's probably the first time I heard them when I was like 18, 19. I remember sitting on the toilet in our rental one like late April, early May evening and just being like texting my wife and be like, "It's the bloody nightjar out there, out the window." And there was a cheering because I think growing up like in the UK, you think they're so much just in heathland habitat, whereas here,
Yeah,
if it's like a bit gorsy and rocky, they're kind of
yeah.
hanging out. So I know, I mean, it's amazing. But like when we say we're rewild, I mean we are rewilding, but you know it's a farming area. You know, in Spanish they're called chotocabras, which is also like their Latin name is like Capri, basically goat sucker. Like they think
Mm,
they,
mm,
and that was like going all the way back. Like Pliny the Elder wrote about them because
mm.
they basically came in, flew like a ghost, and they came into like the barns and stuff, I guess, to eat the insects.
Yeah.
But I guess it was summer, so the goats were drying up anyway in terms of their milk. So they thought it was the nightjars drinking the milk from the goats. And
Mm.
that went on for like, you know, another thousand, like Middle Ages, people still thought they were goat suckers. And there's like these drawings of this like weird bird hanging off the teats of a goat. But their Latin is still that. But in terms of like, so they're kind of an agricultural bird across Europe. You know, that's where farmers saw them coming in to
Mm.
barns when actually all they like is moths and beetles. But
Problem being that we've lost so many of our large flying insects here in the UK. So in terms of sort of declines, they're measured all across Europe, of course, and we've had quite significant warnings coming from Germany and France in terms of the loss of those insects and the impacts on particularly bird populations that are studied perhaps more than bats, or more easily and accessibly studied than bats. But here in the UK, unfortunately, we're at the top of the league table when it comes to the loss of those insects. I mean, as you know, you're losing your redback shrikes now. We essentially lost ours in the 1980s, and there's been sporadic breeding ever since. And they were a real indicator when it came to, a bird that needed to feed on large beetles, bumblebees, dragonflies, whatever it happened to be. So I'm afraid that we're at the sort of the sharp end of the wedge. But in Spain, due to the lack of the chemical assault that's waged on, our wildlife here, I guess, things are holding out longer, hence the 10 meters to the chowing. And I don't know. I'm disappointed, but I feel that I've been justifiably let down tonight only by the great British weather, because by now, under normal circumstances, I would have had a couple of fly pasts. But it's, as I say, temperatures dropped. It's quite windy, overcast, and I'm just looking up. I can only see a few small insects buzzing around. It's not like it has been for the last few nights.
yeah, and I mean, I guess that's always the tricky thing in terms of even just the fall off in terms of insect population, but weather as well. I mean, I don't know how it is in the UK. I was in the UK briefly last year, and I just remember it was a very cold, damp spring.
Mm,
And I guess
mm.
that must really affect it. They migrate to the Congo or something, right? European nightjars. I don't know if they all
Yeah,
go there, but
yeah.
it's kind of,
Yeah, they do, and then they come back here. So last year we had a very wet spring. This year we've had a very dry spring. In May we'd had 20% of the rainfall that we would have expected by that time. So there was a drought, a significant drought situation here, which gave rise to fires on, nightjar habitat. Obviously, sandy lowland heath here. It's very fragmented and quite a rare habitat, but we had some quite significant fires. Fortunately, subsequent to that, we've had some rain, which has reduced the fire risk. Um, but this, juxtaposition between extremely wet, extremely dry, brought on by climate breakdown is certainly having an impact. Last year, we had the lowest number of butterflies in Butterfly Conservation's brilliant big butterfly count. If you are watching, do get involved this year. It's important to count, butterfly populations, and bumblebee conservation reported the same. So, I mean, both again indicators of large flying insects, basically. And so the diminished numbers will undoubtedly be having an impact on our birds. And I think, we've been issuing some quite stern warnings, but we haven't had quite the action that we require at this point in addressing those. So fingers crossed, people are going to wake up pretty soon. Oh, hold on.
oh,
I
oh,
can't, no, I can't claim that. It was just a black shape flying through one of the trees. So I can't even I can't, I don't know. Like, there's nothing else flying about. All the jackals have gone to bed by the looks of it, but I can't claim that as a nightjar. Look, I think we should wrap it up, because whatever happens here, I'm not going to be able to top that churring at 10 meters and wing clapping what surely must have been over your head.
yeah,
You
just
faded to
sometimes.
darkness, so we're going to have
Yeah,
to
I was
say
going to say,
good,
I'm just a
goodbye to you
silhouette.
in the dark. Just give us the details of Wild Thinker again. I mean, it sounds absolutely fantastic. I'm sure many people over the course of the summer would like to get their kids and young people involved with your project there, and it's great to hear about the work you're doing.
So it's wildthinker.com, and that's not just me not pronouncing my THs, it's with a F. It's not some crazy philosophical project. So wildthinker.com, and there you can sign up to newsletters. And like I say, you get kind of sent in whichever direction you're interested in terms of just general rewilding and kids and stuff. Or
Mm.
we're on Instagram and Facebook, both at Wild Thinker again.
Excellent. Okay, so good to catch up with you. I'm glad it's going well out there. I'm sorry to hear about the problems with the wolves and so forth with the wildlife, but I think that's something that we're going to need to push back against all over the world. So good luck with that. Keep fighting. Keep standing up for that wildlife. Do everything you're doing with the young people and getting them educated is brilliant. And thank you so much for giving us churring nightjar and wind clapping overhead. Come on, that's what social media is for.
I'll feed them extra moths tomorrow as a reward.
All right. Good
Thanks
night,
so much.
mate. Yeah, great to see you. Great to see you.
Bye.
Cheers. Bye.